Queen Lysara stood at the window of her palace, looking out at the 3 moons that circled her home world. She had ruled the Valtherian Empire for 300 years. Her people could read minds and move objects with their thoughts. They were powerful and ancient, and she was their strongest leader. But Lysara was lonely. She had everything a queen could want: a beautiful palace made of crystal and light, 17 star systems under her control, advisors who respected her wisdom. Yet something was missing. In 3 centuries of life, she had never found anyone who saw her as just a person, not as a ruler or a weapon. That changed the day Jake Henderson walked into her garden. Jake was from Earth. His planet had only just learned to travel faster than light. The humans were new to space, curious and excited like children exploring a new playground. Earth had sent people to learn about other species, and Jake had volunteered. He worked fixing machines back home in a place called Colorado. He had no special skills for diplomacy or politics. He just wanted to see the stars. On his 3rd day on Valthos Prime, Jake got lost. The palace was enormous, and his translation device was broken. He wandered through halls made of materials that seemed to shift color as he passed. Eventually, he found a door and stepped through it into the most beautiful garden he had ever seen. Trees made of living crystal grew toward a purple sky. Flowers that hummed with soft music swayed in a breeze that smelled like honey and rain. In the center of it all sat a woman who seemed to glow with inner light. She wore a simple white dress, and a crown of pure energy floated above her head. Jake knew immediately who she was. Everyone in the galaxy knew Queen Lysara. But he was lost and hungry. And he figured even queens knew where the cafeteria was. "Excuse me," he said, walking up to her. "I'm really sorry to bother you, but I'm completely lost. Do you know where I can get some food?" Lysara turned to look at him. People usually fell to their knees when they saw her. They spoke in formal voices and kept their eyes down. This human just stood there with a friendly smile, holding his broken device like it was the most natural thing in the world to interrupt a queen's meditation. She could have read his mind to understand him better. Her people did that constantly, scanning thoughts to know what others truly meant. But something made her stop. She wanted to know this human the old way, through words and time. "You are Jake Henderson from Earth," she said. Her voice sounded like music. "The cafeteria is in the East Wing. You are currently in the West Wing, in my private garden." Jake's eyes went wide. "Oh man, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to intrude. I'll just go." "Wait," Lysara said. She did not know why she said it. "How did you get lost?" Jake held up his device. "This thing is supposed to translate everything and give me directions. But I think I broke it when I dropped it this morning. I'm good with machines, but this alien tech is way beyond what I'm used to. May I see it?" Jake handed it over. Lysara examined the device and saw the problem immediately. A simple connection had come loose. She could have fixed it with her mind, but instead, she showed Jake what was wrong. "There," she said, pointing to the issue. "Can you repair it?" Jake pulled a small tool from his pocket and made the adjustment. The device came back to life. "Thanks. You're pretty good at this." Lysara almost laughed. No one had complimented her on anything practical in decades. "I enjoy learning how things work. Even simple machines have elegance. That's exactly how I feel." Jake's face lit up. "Back home, people think I'm weird because I'd rather fix an engine than watch television. But there's something beautiful about understanding how pieces fit together to make something work." They talked for an hour. Jake told her about Earth, about mountains covered in white snow and oceans that stretched to the horizon. He described the smell of coffee and the sound of rain on a roof. Lysara found herself fascinated. She had visited 1,000 worlds. But this human made his simple planet sound magical. When Jake finally left to find food, Lysara sat in her garden and realized she was smiling. She could not remember the last time she had smiled. The next day, Jake came back. He had been assigned to repair equipment in the palace, and he needed to fix a broken environmental system near the gardens. Lysara happened to be meditating nearby. They talked again. And the day after that. And the day after that. Jake never treated her like a queen. He argued with her about music and laughed at her jokes. He asked her opinion on things that had nothing to do with politics. He told her when she was wrong, which no one else dared to do. And slowly, Lysara began to feel something she had thought was lost forever. She began to feel human, even though she was not. 2 years passed. Jake's assignment on Valthos Prime kept getting extended. Everyone assumed it was because he was good at his job. The truth was that Lysara used her influence to keep him there. She told herself it was because he was useful, because his human perspective helped her understand Earth better. But she knew the real reason. She had fallen in love. One evening, Jake found her on a balcony watching the sunset. He stood next to her quietly for a moment, then said, "I need to tell you something." Lysara's heart, which had not raced in 100 years, began to beat faster. "What is it?" "My assignment ends next month. They want me to go back to Earth." He paused. "But I don't want to go. I want to stay here. With you, Jake." "I know it's crazy," he continued. "You're a queen who will live for thousands of years. I'm just a guy who fixes machines. I'll grow old and die while you stay young. We're from different species, different worlds. There are probably a million reasons this is a bad idea." "Then why suggest it?" Lysara asked softly. Jake turned to face her. "Because in 2 years, you've made me happier than I've ever been. Because when I think about leaving, I feel like I'm going to lose the best part of myself. Because I love you. And I don't care if that's impossible, or crazy, or doomed. I just know it's true." With Feldar, Lysara could have read his mind to confirm his feelings, but she did not need to. She could see the truth in his eyes, hear it in his voice, and she realized that this simple human had given her something 3 centuries of power never could. He had given her connection, understanding, and love. "My advisors will hate this," she said. "Probably," Jake agreed. "My people will think I have lost my mind. Most definitely. There will be political complications that could affect the entire empire. I'm counting on it." Lysara laughed, a real laugh that came from deep in her chest. "Then I suppose we should give them something to really worry about." "Jake Henderson, will you marry me?" Jake pulled a small ring from his pocket. It was made of simple metal, nothing fancy or expensive. "I was hoping you'd say that. This was my grandmother's ring. It's not much, compared to what you're used to. But," Lysara took the ring and slipped it on her finger. It was the most beautiful thing she had ever worn. The wedding happened 3 months later. Half of Lysara's court resigned in protest. Diplomatic relations with 3 neighboring species became tense. Earth's government did not know whether to celebrate or panic. But none of it mattered to Jake and Lysara. They married in the same garden where they had first met. Jake wore a simple black suit. Lysara wore armor that changed colors with her emotions, shimmering through every shade of joy. When they held hands and spoke their vows, everyone present felt the truth of their connection. For 5 years, they built a life together. Lysara ruled her empire with Jake by her side. He never tried to control her decisions or use his position for power. Instead, he focused on helping people. He built schools and improved farming systems. He made friends with everyone, from the lowest servants to the highest nobles. People who had doubted the marriage began to change their minds. They saw how Jake made their queen better, how his presence brought balance to her rule, how his human perspective helped solve problems that Valtherian thinking could not. Life was good. Life was peaceful. But peace never lasts forever. And neither of them knew that Jake was far more than he appeared to be. That inside him slept a power that would change everything. A power that would only wake when the woman he loved faced death itself. The Krell Dominion had been planning the attack for 5 years. They were a species built for war. Every Krell was born in a laboratory, designed to be stronger and meaner than natural evolution could create. Their empire had conquered 80 different species across the galaxy. They took what they wanted and crushed anyone who resisted. For generations, the Krell had wanted to control Valtherian space. The Valtherians were powerful, but they were also peaceful. They used their mental powers for defense, not conquest. The Krell saw this as weakness. When Queen Lysara married a human, the Krell leaders saw their chance. Humans were soft. They believed. Weak creatures, who had barely left their own planet. If the great Queen Lysara loved one of these fragile beings, then perhaps she had grown weak too. The Krell were wrong, but they would not learn that until it was too late. The attack began at dawn on a day that had started like any other. Krell warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Valtherian space. There were hundreds of them, each one bristling with weapons designed to break through mental shields. They had been planning this for years, studying Valtherian defenses, finding weaknesses. The first planet fell in 6 hours. The second took a day. By the end of the third day, 4 colony worlds were under Krell control, and their fleet was pushing toward Valthos Prime itself. Lysara threw everything she had at them. Her elite warriors, the Mind Guard, were the most powerful psychic fighters in the galaxy. They could crush starships with their thoughts and move faster than light using only their minds. But the Krell had prepared for them. Their soldiers wore special helmets that blocked mental attacks. Their ships had shields that scattered psychic energy. The battles were brutal. Space itself seemed to tear apart as mental powers clashed with physical weapons. Lysara stood in the command center of her palace, coordinating defense across 17 star systems. She had not slept in 3 days. Her mental energy reached across light years, directing ships, protecting civilians, healing wounded soldiers. Jake watched her from across the room. He felt useless. This was not a problem he could fix with tools and clever thinking. This was war, on a scale humans had never experienced. All he could do was bring Lysara water and food, and try to keep her from completely exhausting herself. "You need to rest," he said during a brief pause in the fighting. "You're going to burn yourself out." Lysara shook her head. "If I stop, more people die. The Krell are pushing toward the inner systems. If they reach Valthos Prime, it's over. Then let me help somehow. Put me in a ship. Give me a weapon, something." "No," Lysara said firmly. "You're human. You have no defenses against their weapons. I won't lose you to this war." Jake wanted to argue, but he knew she was right. He was just a man from Colorado who fixed machines. What could he possibly do against an empire of genetically engineered warriors? On the 6th day, the Krell fleet reached Valthos Prime. The planet's shields held, but barely. Krell soldiers began landing on the surface, fighting their way through Valtherian defenders toward the capital city. Lysara was exhausted. She had been channeling her power constantly for almost a week. Her advisors begged her to retreat to a secure location, but she refused. A queen did not run, while her people fought and died. Then the alarms in the palace began to scream. A Krell strike team had broken through the outer defenses. They were in the palace itself, fighting toward the throne room. Lysara's personal guard rushed to intercept them, but the Krell were too many and too strong. "We need to evacuate you," Captain Lewis said. He was the head of palace security, a steady man who had served Lysara for 20 years. "There's a ship waiting. We can get you out." "No," Lysara said. "I will not abandon my home." "Then at least get to a more defensible position. The throne room has better shields." Lysara nodded. She and Jake ran through the palace corridors with guards surrounding them. Behind them, they could hear the sounds of fighting. Weapons, fire, and screams echoed through the crystal halls. They made it to the throne room just as the last of the palace guard fell. The doors sealed shut, but everyone knew it would not hold for long. There were 12 Krell soldiers outside, and the doors were already starting to crack under their assault. Lysara raised her hands. Energy crackled between her fingers as she prepared for one last fight. But Jake could see how weak she was. She had given everything to protect her people. She had nothing left. The doors exploded inward. Krell soldiers poured through, their weapons ready. They were massive creatures, each one over 7 feet tall, and covered in armor that looked like it was made from dark metal and bone. Their eyes glowed red behind their helmets. Leading them was the biggest Krell Jake had ever seen. It had 4 arms, each one ending in claws that could tear through steel. Scars covered every visible part of its body. This was a creature that had survived countless battles and killed countless enemies. The Krell commander looked at Lysara and made a sound that the translator rendered as laughter. It said, "You look tired. 500 years of life. And this is how it ends. Defeated by superior strength." "It's not over," Lysara said. Lightning danced around her hands. "I will never surrender." "I don't want your surrender," the commander replied. "I want your empire, and you will watch as we take it, piece by piece. You will see everything you built destroyed. Then, when you have lost all hope, we will let you die." The commander's eyes shifted to Jake. "And this must be the famous, human husband, the pet you married. Tell me, human, do you regret your choice now? Do you wish you had stayed on your primitive little world?" Jake stepped in front of Lysara. His heart was pounding so hard he thought it might burst. His hands were shaking, but his voice was steady when he spoke. "If you want to hurt her, you'll have to go through me first." All 12 Krell soldiers began to laugh. The sound was horrible, like metal scraping against stone. "Brave words," the commander said, "but bravery means nothing without power. You are just flesh and bone. Weak. Fragile. One blow from me would tear you apart." "Maybe," Jake said. "But I'm still standing between you and her. So if you want her, come and get her." The commander raised one massive clawed hand. "As you wish, human. I will make this quick. You don't deserve to suffer for your stupidity." It moved forward, fast as lightning despite its size. The claw swung down toward Jake's head, ready to end his life in one brutal strike. Jake closed his eyes. He was not afraid. If this was how he died, protecting the woman he loved, then he accepted it. He only wished he could have done more. But death did not come. Instead, Jake felt warmth spreading through his chest. It was like standing in sunlight after being in the cold for too long. The warmth grew stronger, spreading through his arms and legs, filling every part of his body. He opened his eyes. The Krell commander's claw had stopped inches from Jake's face. It was frozen in place, trapped in a field of shimmering light that seemed to bend reality around it. The commander pulled back, but the energy field moved with it, holding it in place like a fly, in amber. Jake looked down at his hands. They were glowing, not with Valtherian psychic energy, but with something else. Something older, and deeper, and far more powerful. Behind him, Lysara gasped. Through her mental senses, she could feel what was happening. The human she loved, the man she thought had no special abilities, was suddenly radiating more power than she had ever felt from any living being. "Jake," she whispered, "what's happening to you?" Jake did not know. He did not understand where this power came from or how to control it. He only knew one thing with absolute certainty. He would not let these creatures hurt Lysara. He would not let them destroy everything she had built. That certainty became reality. The other Krell soldiers opened fire. Energy, weapons, and physical bullets filled the throne room with enough destructive force to level a city block. But none of it reached Jake or Lysara. The projectiles slowed, stopped, and hung in the air like they had hit an invisible wall. Then they reversed direction and struck the palace walls instead, leaving the Krell unharmed but very surprised. The commander broke free from the energy field through sheer force. It roared in anger. "What kind of trick is this? Humans don't have powers. You're supposed to be weak." Jake looked at the massive creature, and suddenly he understood it. He could see the genetic code that made up its body, the electrical impulses firing through its brain, the quantum particles that formed every atom of its being. He understood all of it. More than that, he could change it if he wanted to. He could unmake the Krell commander with a thought. He could erase it from existence as easily as deleting a file from a computer. The realization terrified him. Jake stared at his glowing hands and felt the power flowing through him like a river of fire. He could destroy the Krell soldiers with a thought. He could tear apart their ships in orbit. He could unmake them from existence, and they would never have been born. But he did not want to destroy. That was not who he was. Even now, with power beyond imagination at his fingertips, he remained himself. The Krell commander charged at him again, moving faster than any creature that size should be able to move. Its 4 arms swung, claws sharp enough to cut through steel, but Jake simply raised one hand, and the commander stopped, as if it had hit a wall. "I don't want to hurt you," Jake said. His voice sounded strange to his own ears, like it was coming from somewhere far away. "I just want you to understand." "Understand what?" The commander snarled. "That you have some trick? Some weapon? It doesn't matter. The Krell Dominion does not retreat. We do not surrender. We will take this empire even if we have to kill every living thing on every planet." Jake felt something shift inside him. The power responded to his emotions, to his desire to make this creature understand the pain it had caused. Without conscious thought, he reached out with his mind, or perhaps with something deeper than mind, and touched the commander's consciousness. Suddenly, the Krell was not standing in a throne room. It was not a warrior or a commander. It was a colonist on one of the conquered worlds, watching as Krell ships appeared in the sky. It felt the terror of knowing death was coming and being powerless to stop it. Then it was a soldier dying far from home, bleeding out on a battlefield, calling for family that would never come. It was a child pulled from its parents' arms. It was a farmer watching crops burn. It was 1,000 different people experiencing 1,000 different moments of suffering, all caused by Krell conquest. The commander experienced lifetimes of pain in seconds. Every victim of every Krell invasion. Every life destroyed by the Empire's endless hunger for power. It felt all of it, as if it were happening to itself. When Jake released the connection, the massive warrior collapsed to the floor, shaking. Its red eyes were wide with shock and something that might have been horror. What did you do to me?" it gasped. "I showed you the truth," Jake said quietly. "I showed you what your empire does to people. What you do. Every conquest, every battle, every world you take. This is what it means. This is what it costs." The other Krell soldiers backed away from Jake. Their weapons were still raised, but their hands were shaking. They had been bred for war, designed to feel no fear. But they were afraid now. Not of death, but of this strange human who could make them feel things they were never meant to feel. Lysara moved to Jake's side. She placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, and through that touch, she could sense the enormous power contained within him. It was like standing next to a star, barely held in check by his will. "My love," she said softly. Jake shook his head. The power was already starting to fade, retreating back into whatever hidden depths it had come from. He felt exhausted, like he had just run a marathon. "I don't understand any of this. I just knew I couldn't let them hurt you." The throne room doors burst open. More Valtherian guards rushed in, ready to fight. But they stopped when they saw the scene before them. Krell soldiers, standing with their weapons lowered. Their commander on the floor, looking broken. And Jake Henderson, standing at the center of it all, his hands still faintly glowing. Captain Lewis stepped forward, his weapon trained on the Krell. "Your Majesty, are you hurt?" "No," Lysara said. "We are safe, thanks to my husband." The Krell commander slowly pushed itself to its feet. It looked at Jake with what might have been respect. "What are you?" it asked. "I'm just a mechanic from Colorado," Jake replied. But I'm also human. And maybe that means more than any of us realized. The commander turned to its soldiers. Contact the fleet. Tell them to cease all offensive operations immediately. Full retreat to designated fallback positions. One of the soldiers stepped forward. Commander Thrax, the Dominion will consider this treason. We were ordered to conquer this empire. The Dominion gave those orders based on bad information, Thrax replied. They thought humans were weak. They thought Queen Lysara had made herself vulnerable by marrying one. They were wrong. This human has power unlike anything we've encountered in 1,000 years of conquest. The soldier hesitated, then activated its communication device. Within minutes, orders went out across the entire Krell fleet. Ships that had been bombarding Valtherian positions stopped firing. Ground forces that had been pushing toward civilian centers pulled back. The invasion, which had seemed unstoppable just minutes ago, came to a halt. Thrax looked at Jake again. The Dominion will want to know what happened here. They will want to study you, to understand this power. They can want all they like, Lysara said firmly. Jake is under my protection. If the Krell Dominion wishes to continue this war, they will face not just the Valtherian Empire, but whatever Jake has become. I don't think that will be necessary, Thrax said. I will tell the Dominion leaders what I experienced, what this human made me feel. They are warriors, but they are not fools. They will understand that conquering humanity would cost more than any victory is worth. The Krell soldiers left the throne room slowly, carefully, as if afraid that any sudden movement might trigger Jake's power again. Thrax was the last to leave. At the doorway, it paused and looked back. For what it's worth, human. I understand now why she married you. You have more strength than any warrior I've ever met. Not because you can destroy, but because you choose not to. Then the Krell were gone, and Jake and Lysara were alone in the damaged throne room. Jake's legs gave out. He sat down hard on the floor, his whole body shaking with exhaustion. Lysara knelt beside him, wrapping her arms around him. Are you hurt? She asked. No. Just tired. Really, really tired. He looked up at her. What happened to me? What was that? I don't know, Lysara admitted. I've never felt anything like it. It wasn't psychic power. It was something else entirely. Something fundamental to reality itself. Can I do it again? I don't know that either. Can you feel it now? Jake searched inside himself, looking for that warmth, that river of fire that had filled him during the fight. It was still there, but distant, like an echo. It's there, but I can't reach it. It's like it's sleeping. Lysara helped him to his feet. We need to find out what this means. For you, for humanity, for everyone. This changes everything. Over the next few hours, news of what had happened spread across the galaxy at the speed of light. The Krell invasion had stopped because of one human, one ordinary man who had somehow accessed power that defied understanding. Scientists from a dozen different species requested permission to study Jake. Military commanders wanted to know if other humans could do the same thing. Diplomats scrambled to adjust treaties and agreements based on this new reality. But Jake just wanted to sleep. Lysara took him to their private chambers and made sure no one disturbed them. As he lay in bed, barely able to keep his eyes open, she sat beside him and held his hand. I'm scared, Jake admitted. That power, Lysara, it was so strong. I could have killed all of them without thinking about it. I could have destroyed the entire Krell fleet. The whole empire, maybe. What if next time I can't control it? What if I hurt someone innocent? Then we'll figure it out together, she said firmly. You've spent 5 years helping me become a better ruler. Let me help you understand what you're becoming. What am I becoming? Lysara was quiet for a long moment. I think, she said slowly, that you're becoming what humanity was always meant to be. Every species in the galaxy has reached a plateau. We've stopped evolving, stopped growing. We're comfortable in our power. But humans are different. You're still changing, still developing. What you showed today might be just the beginning. That's terrifying. Yes, Lasara agreed. But it's also beautiful. You could have destroyed the Krell. Instead, you made them understand. You showed them empathy, forced them to feel what their victims felt. That's not the action of a weapon. That's the action of a healer. This. Jake thought about that as sleep began to claim him. Maybe Lasara was right. Maybe this power, whatever it was, existed not to destroy but to connect, to help others understand each other. As he drifted off, he heard Lasara whisper, "Sleep now, my love. Tomorrow we begin to understand what you truly are. But tonight, you're just Jake, my husband, the man who saved not just my life, but helped save my empire without taking a single life in return." Outside the palace, the 3 moons rose over Valthos Prime. The Krell fleet retreated into deep space, and across the galaxy, every species that had ever underestimated humanity began to reconsider their assumptions. The quiet mechanic from Colorado had shown them something they had never expected. Humans were not just another species struggling to survive in a hostile universe. They were something new, something powerful, something that might change everything. And Jake Henderson, exhausted and confused and still not fully understanding what had happened, slept peacefully in the arms of the alien queen who loved him. Dr. Helen Cruz arrived on Valthos Prime 3 days after the Krell retreat. She was Earth's top expert on human biology and evolution, and she had traveled 5 light-years to understand what had happened to Jake Henderson. She was not alone. Scientists from 20 different species came with her, all wanting to study the human who had stopped an invasion with powers no one understood. Jake sat in a medical bay while machines scanned every part of his body. Lights moved over his skin. Sensors measured his brain waves. Samples of his blood, his DNA, even his hair, were taken and analyzed. He felt like a lab experiment instead of a person. Lasara stood nearby, watching everything carefully. She had insisted on being present for all the tests. Some of the scientists had complained, but one look from the Queen had silenced them. No one was going to poke and prod her husband without her there to make sure he was treated with respect. After 2 days of constant testing, Helen called a meeting of all the researchers. They gathered in a conference room deep in the palace. Jake and Lasara sat at the head of the table, surrounded by some of the greatest minds in the galaxy. Helen activated a holographic display. Images of DNA strands and energy patterns filled the air above the table. "We've run every test we can think of," she began. "Blood work, brain scans, genetic sequencing, quantum resonance imaging. The results are both simple and complicated." A Valtherian scientist named Kelvin leaned forward. He was old, even by his species standards. "Over 800 years. What did you find?" "Low. Jake Henderson is completely normal," Helen said. "There's nothing in his biology that's different from any other human. No mutations, no genetic modifications, no physical anomalies. By every measure we have, he's just a regular person." "That's impossible," Kelvin said. "We all saw what he did. The power he displayed was greater than anything the Valtherian Empire has produced in 5,000 years of history. That kind of ability must have a source." "It does have a source," Helen replied. "But it's not in Jake specifically. It's in all humans. Jake isn't special. He's just the first one we know about who has accessed this ability." Lasara's eyes widened. "Are you saying every human can do what Jake did?" "We believe so, yes. But it requires very specific conditions to activate." Helen changed the holographic display to show a timeline of human evolution. "Humans are young. Armentation. Our species only developed modern intelligence about 300,000 years ago. We've only had civilization for 10,000 years. By galactic standards, we're babies." She highlighted a section of the timeline showing rapid changes. Most species reach a point where their evolution slows down or stops. They find a form that works well enough, and they stay that way for millions of years. Humans haven't done that. We're still evolving, still changing. Our brains are getting larger. Our lifespans are increasing. Our ability to adapt is unlike anything seen in other species. A scientist from the crystalline assembly, a being made of living crystal, named Harmony, spoke up. But evolution takes millions of years. How could humans develop such extreme abilities so quickly? That's the question we've been trying to answer, Helen said. And we think we've found it. Human DNA contains something we're calling dormant potential. It's like a seed waiting for the right conditions to grow. Most humans will never activate it, because they'll never face the conditions required. What conditions? Jake asked. It was the first time he had spoken since the meeting began. Helen looked at him with sympathy. Extreme stress, combined with absolute necessity. Your life wasn't in danger in that throne room, Jake. You could have run or hidden, but Lysara's life was in danger, and she had nothing left to defend herself. You loved her so completely that her survival became more important than your own. That combination, love and necessity, and the willingness to give everything to protect someone else, created the catalyst. Jake thought back to that moment. Standing between the Krell commander and Lysara. Knowing he was about to die but not caring because maybe his death would buy her a few more seconds. He had not been thinking about power or survival. He had only been thinking about her. So, it's triggered by emotion? Lysara asked. Not just any emotion, Helen replied. It requires a level of commitment that most beings, of any species, never reach. You have to want something so completely, so absolutely, that nothing else matters. And it can't be selfish. Jake wasn't trying to save himself. He was trying to save you. That selflessness seems to be key. Kelvin studied the data floating in front of him. This suggests that other humans could activate this ability if placed in similar circumstances. We think so, Helen confirmed. And we've already seen evidence of it. In the 3 days since news of Jake's awakening spread, there have been 7 reported incidents of humans displaying similar abilities. She brought up reports from across human space. A farmer on Mars, who somehow knew how to repair equipment that should have been impossible to fix, saving his colony from life support failure. A teacher on Europa who moved debris with her mind to save children from a collapsing building. A doctor on Earth who healed injuries that should have been fatal just by touching the patients. In every case, Helen continued, the human was trying to save someone else. They were facing a crisis where normal methods wouldn't work, and they loved the people they were trying to protect enough to do the impossible. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. Finally, a military officer from Earth named General Peterson spoke. What does this mean for humanity's place in the galaxy? If our people can develop these abilities, we change from a minor power to potentially the most dangerous species in known space. Or the most helpful, Lysara said firmly. Did any of you notice what Jake did to the Krell commander? He didn't kill him. He didn't destroy him. He made him feel empathy. He forced a creature bred for war to understand the suffering war causes. That's not a weapon. That's something far more powerful. It's still dangerous, Peterson argued. What if someone with bad intentions activates this power? What if a human criminal or terrorist gains these abilities? Helen shook her head. That's the beautiful part. We don't think it works that way. The ability seems to require selflessness to activate. You can't access it for selfish reasons. You can't use it to hurt others just because you want to. The very nature of the power limits how it can be used. You can't be sure of that, Peterson said. No, Helen admitted. We can't. This is all new territory. But based on every case we've studied so far, the pattern holds. The power emerges to protect, to heal, to create understanding, not to destroy. Jake listened to them talk about him and his species like they were discussing a science experiment. Part of him was angry. He didn't want to be analyzed and categorized, but another part understood why it was necessary. If other humans were going to start developing these abilities, people needed to understand what was happening. What happens now? He asked. Helen looked at him seriously. That's up to you, Jake. Earth's government wants to study you more. They want to figure out how to trigger this ability intentionally, create training programs, maybe even build a military force of awakened humans. Absolutely not, Lysara said, her voice cold as ice. Jake is not a weapon to be studied and copied. He's a person. My husband. And he has the right to refuse. I agree with the Queen, Kelvin said, surprising everyone. Trying to force this awakening would be a mistake. The power responds to genuine emotion, to real need. You can't fake that. You can't train someone to love deeply enough to activate it. Peterson looked frustrated, but he nodded. Then what do you recommend? We watch, Kelvin said. We document cases as they occur naturally. We study the patterns and try to understand the limits. But we don't force it. And we certainly don't try to weaponize it. I agree, Helen said. Jake, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. If you want to go back to fixing machines and living quietly with your wife, that's your choice. But I hope you'll be willing to talk to others who awaken. To help them understand what's happening and how to handle it. Jake thought about that. He didn't want to be a symbol or a teacher. But if other humans were going through what he had experienced, they would be scared and confused. Maybe he could help them. Maybe that was a way to use this strange gift for good. I'll help if I can, he said finally. But on my terms. No military training, no government programs. Just person to person. Helping people understand what's happening to them. Fair enough, Helen said. The meeting continued for several more hours. They discussed protocols for identifying awakened humans, support systems to help them adjust, and diplomatic implications for Earth's relations with other species. But Jake stopped paying close attention. His mind was elsewhere. That night, alone with Lysara in their chambers, he finally asked the question that had been bothering him. Why did this happen now? Humans have been around for hundreds of thousands of years. Why didn't this ability show up before? Lysara considered the question. Maybe it did. But we called it something else. Miracles. Magic. Divine intervention. Human history is full of stories about people doing impossible things in moments of crisis. Maybe those weren't just stories. Or maybe, she continued, humanity needed to reach a certain point before this could emerge. You had to be advanced enough to meet other species, to face threats beyond your world. The ability might have always been there, dormant, waiting for the right moment in your development. Jake lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. Somewhere out there, other humans were discovering they could do impossible things. The galaxy was learning that humanity was more than anyone had suspected. And he, Jake Henderson, mechanic from Colorado, was at the center of it all. I just wanted to see the stars, he said quietly. That's all I wanted when I signed up for this program. To have an adventure, see something beyond Earth. Lysara lay down beside him, resting her head on his shoulder. And instead, you changed the galaxy. Funny how life works. Lime, unwime. Lysara lave works. Yeah, Jake said. Hilarious. But despite his sarcasm, he felt oddly peaceful. Whatever was happening, whatever humans were becoming, he would face it the same way he had faced everything else, one day at a time, with the woman he loved by his side. 6 months passed since the day Jake stopped the Krell invasion. In that time, the galaxy changed in ways no one had predicted. The Krell Dominion, which had never retreated from a fight in their 1,000-year history, requested a peace summit. They came not with demands or threats, but with genuine interest in understanding humanity better. Commander Thrax himself led the delegation, and he spoke openly about what Jake had made him feel that day in the throne room. Other species followed. The Zenthari Collective offered a defense treaty. The Crystalline Assembly proposed technology exchanges. Even the Voidwalkers, mysterious beings of pure energy who rarely talk to physical species, sent representatives to meet with human leaders. Everyone wanted to understand humanity now. Everyone wanted to be humanity's friend, or at least avoid being their enemy. Jake watched all of this from a distance. He had refused to become a public figure or a symbol. News organizations across the galaxy wanted interviews. Governments wanted him to speak at conferences. Military academies wanted him to teach strategy. He said no to all of it. Instead, he went back to what he loved: fixing machines, helping with infrastructure projects, spending quiet evenings with Lasara. The power that had awakened in him remained dormant most of the time. He could feel it there, deep inside, like a sleeping giant. But he didn't try to wake it. He had learned that it would come when it was needed, and only then. Other humans were not as lucky. Reports came in every week of someone awakening to their abilities in a moment of crisis. Most handled it well, using their newfound power to save lives or solve problems. But a few panicked, scared by what they had become. Those were the ones Jake helped. He would travel to wherever they were, usually with Lasara at his side, and talk to them. Not as a teacher or an expert, but as someone who understood what they were going through. He would tell them about standing in that throne room, about feeling power beyond imagination flowing through him, about being terrified of what he might do. And then he would tell them the most important thing he had learned. The power wasn't theirs to control like a tool. It was part of them, responding to who they truly were. If they were good people, if they wanted to help others, the power would reflect that. It would protect instead of destroy. It would heal instead of harm. Most of the awakened humans found comfort in his words. A few did not, and those worried Jake. But so far, his theory had proven correct. Even the humans who struggled with their abilities, who were angry or scared or confused, could not seem to make the power do anything harmful. It simply would not respond to selfish or cruel intentions. On the 1-year anniversary of the Krell invasion, Valthos Prime hosted a celebration. Representatives from 40 different species gathered in the capital city. The event was supposed to honor the defenders who had fought off the invasion, but everyone knew the real reason for the gathering. They wanted to see the humans. They wanted to understand the species that had changed everything. Jake and Lasara stood on the palace balcony, looking down at the crowds filling the streets below. Music from a dozen different cultures mixed together in a strange but beautiful harmony. Beings who had been enemies for centuries danced together. Trade agreements were being signed. Friendships were being formed. Do you regret it? Lasara asked. Your life before was simpler. Now you're caught up in galactic politics, whether you want to be or not. Jake thought about Colorado, about his small apartment and his job at the repair shop, about weekends, watching sports, and hanging out with friends who thought alien life was just science fiction. That life seemed like it belonged to a different person now. No regrets, he said. Everything's more complicated now, sure. But I'm married to the most amazing woman in the galaxy. I've seen wonders I never imagined. I've helped people in ways I never thought possible. How could I regret any of that? Reason on to. Lasara smiled. After 300 years of life, Jake still made her feel things she thought she had lost. Joy, hope, love so deep it seemed to have no bottom. The council met this morning, she said. They wanted to discuss humanity's status in the galactic community, and they proposed elevating Earth to a major power classification, full voting rights in the Galactic Council, protected status for all human worlds. Basically, recognition that humanity is no longer a minor species to be ignored or dismissed. Jake whistled softly. That's a big change. It's deserved, Lasara said. In 1 year, humans have gone from being barely noticed to being one of the most influential species in known space. Not because you conquered anyone or threatened anyone, but because you showed everyone what true strength looks like. Below them, a group of human children played with Valtherian younglings. They were laughing, completely unconcerned with the fact that they were different species. To them, the differences didn't matter. They were just kids playing together. That's what I hope humanity brings to the galaxy, Jake said, watching the children. Not just power, but perspective. The ability to see past differences and find common ground. You've already started that process, Lysara pointed out. Every human who awakens to their abilities becomes a bridge between species. They show that power doesn't have to corrupt, that strength can be gentle. That being advanced doesn't mean being cruel. A messenger approached them, bowing respectfully. Your Majesty, the ceremony is about to begin. They're asking for you both, Lysara nodded. We'll be right there. As the messenger left, Jake took Lysara's hand. Ready to go play diplomat? With you beside me? Always. They walked through the palace halls toward the main ceremonial chamber. Along the way, they passed portraits of previous Valtherian rulers, hundreds of faces looking down from the walls, each one representing decades or centuries of rule. Lysara's portrait would join them someday, and Jake's would be beside it. The alien queen and the human mechanic who changed the galaxy. The ceremony itself was long and formal. Speeches were given in dozens of languages. Treaties were signed. Awards were presented to soldiers and civilians who had shown bravery during the invasion. Jake tried to pay attention, but his mind kept wandering. He thought about the future, about what humanity might become as more people awakened, about the challenges that would come as Earth grew more powerful and influential. Not everyone would be happy about humanity's rise. Some species would feel threatened. There would be conflicts, misunderstandings, maybe even violence. But there would also be cooperation, understanding, growth. Humanity was young and still learning, but they had something that older species had lost. They still believed that things could get better. They still had hope. After the ceremony ended, Jake and Lysara mingled with the guests. Jake found himself talking to Commander Thrax, who had become an unexpected friend over the past months. I wanted to thank you again, Thrax said. His translator made his voice sound rough, like gravel being crushed. What you did to me in that throne room? It was painful, but it was necessary. I had spent my entire life conquering, and never once thought about what that meant for the people we conquered. Have you changed how the Krell Dominion operates? Jake asked. We're trying, Thrax admitted. It's difficult to change a culture built on war and dominance. But we're starting. We've stopped expansion. We're negotiating with species we once conquered, trying to make things right. It will take generations, but we're committed to it. That's all anyone can ask, Jake said. Acknowledgement of mistakes and genuine effort to do better. Later, as the celebration wound down, Jake and Lysara returned to their chambers. Jake was exhausted from hours of socializing, but he felt good. Today had been about more than celebrating a military victory. It had been about celebrating a new beginning. Lysara sat by the window, looking out at the stars. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we had never met? She asked. If you hadn't gotten lost in my garden that day? Sometimes, Jake admitted. I'd probably still be on Earth, fixing cars and watching television, living a perfectly ordinary life. Would you have been happy? Jake thought about that. Maybe. In a different way. But I wouldn't have been complete. I didn't know it at the time. But I was searching for something. Purpose, meaning, connection. I found all of that here, with you. Lysara turned to face him. I was searching too. For 300 years, I ruled my empire and thought I had everything I needed. But I was lonely, Jake, isolated by my power and my position. You gave me something I thought was lost forever. You gave me a partner, an equal, someone who sees me as just Lysara, not as a queen or a weapon. Jake crossed the room and took her hands. So we saved each other. Yes, Lasara agreed. Long before you saved me from the Krell, you saved me from loneliness. They stood together in comfortable silence, looking out at the galaxy they had helped change. Somewhere out there, other humans were discovering their potential. Other species were learning to see humanity in a new light. The future was uncertain, full of challenges and opportunities in equal measure. But Jake felt ready for it. Not because of the power sleeping inside him, not because of his position as the Queen's husband, but because he had learned something important over the past 6 years. Real strength wasn't about how much you could destroy. It was about what you chose to protect. It was about standing up for others, even when you were afraid. It was about love that ran so deep you would give everything to keep it safe. That was the gift humanity was bringing to the galaxy. Not just power, but the wisdom to use it well. The courage to be vulnerable. The strength to choose compassion over cruelty. What are you thinking about? Lasara asked. Jake smiled. Just that I'm really glad I got lost that day. Best wrong turn I ever made. Lasara laughed, and the sound filled the room like music. Outside, the 3 moons of Valthos Prime rose into the night sky. Stars that had burned for billions of years continued their ancient dance. And in a palace made of crystal and light, a human and an alien held each other close, facing the future together. The galaxy had changed. Humanity had changed. But some things remained constant. Love. Hope. The belief that tomorrow could be better than today. Jake Henderson had come to the stars seeking adventure. He had found that and so much more. He had found purpose, family, and a home among beings who had once seemed impossibly alien. He had discovered that humans were capable of greatness beyond anyone's imagination. But most importantly, he had learned that true power came not from what you could do, but from who you chose to be. And he chose to be someone who helped, who protected, who loved, without reservation. It was enough. More than enough. It was everything. As sleep began to claim him, Jake's last thought was simple and profound. The future was bright. For humanity, for the galaxy, for everyone willing to see past their differences and work together. A new dawn was coming. And this time,